cats with 7 heads? People slapping the laws of physics? Why, Matt? Why?
Because magic.
That's how we roll. 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 Welcome to the Goblin's Corner. My name is Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight,
we're talking about the reason for everything.
Because magic.
Indeed.
That's right. So this is what we like to call the justification episode.
Sure.
And what we're going to do tonight is to talk about why you can use magic in your game world to justify whatever the hell you want.
And we're going to talk a little bit about naysaying.
Yes, but we'll also talk about the ridiculousness of that naysaying.
Yes.
So before we jump into all of the mix, if you haven't yet, hit the like and subscribe button. Help us get our show out to more people and get notified when amazing episodes come your way. I just did the
finger gun. Didn't we talk about this last episode?
You know what? I'm a terrible person. It's fine.
Okay.
I thoroughly admit that.
And if you're listening to the show, you can give us a review on iTunes and Podchaser.
Or I'll keep doing the finger gun thing.
I'm going to try and convince him not to do that.
Yeah, he's going to break my fingers is what he's going to do.
Hey, look, I convince in multiple different ways, but it is on the table.
So, Matt, what are we talking about when we say because magic? And as I mentioned before, we're calling this the justification episode.
This is something that comes up a lot when you're talking about how real to make a game.
If anybody has ever frequented a Reddit forum, for example, you can hear a lot of bitching and moaning about whether or not a specific spell happens to be on par with the rest of the game, if it's, by raw, whatnot. A lot of arguing over stuff that doesn't even exist because it's magic.
That is very true. There's a lot of people who like to use the word realism
when they're talking about their fantasy character who's an orc.
Yeah, this is a silly, ridiculous hill to die on.
We both find this ridiculous, and so we thought tonight would be a fun episode to talk about how ridiculous it is because magic. Also, there's a lot of weird arguments online about realism in magic. I don't know about you, Matt, but I don't see anybody flying around in our world yet. Have you met an orc or elf that wasn't cosplay?
I want minimum realism in my fantasy.
Well, we use it for escapism, which is why.
Right.
But yes, and I'll give you a perfect example of what we're talking about. So someone might, for example, argue the wind speed of a magically flying creature and how it can't fly that fast because of wind speed and because of wind resistance and so forth. Dude, it's flying. Like, that kind of throws physics out the window to start with.
You're arguing that the magic that allows them to fly does not
allow them to
move at certain speeds. Okay. If it makes you feel better.
And when you get down to brass tacks, this is a stupid argument. It is. It's just dumb.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to say is what, Matt?
Magic in a world serves whatever narrative that you're attempting to accomplish by kind of spackling, right? It fills the cracks of all the possibilities.
Yes, this is narrative rearrangement for fantastical things. I want to play a character, a superhero. I want to be able to fly through the air, right?
Yep.
I want to be able to shoot laser beams out of my eyes. Can't do that normally. I'd be a lot happier if I could, but I can't.
That is true.
Traffic would be so different. But because I can't, we are using narrative devices. Magic is that narrative device.
Sure.
This is why we get so pissed when people bitch about how something is not realistic or it's not truthful to the game and so forth. Now, we're not talking about thematic or styling or anything like that, because certainly there's stuff that is part of lore in a campaign, for example, or a written series of books.
Your superhero comment, right? There are things that are narratively appropriate to comics that are not necessarily narratively appropriate to high fantasy.
Correct. And what comes down to it is when you can literally raise the dead, stop bitching about why the cat can't be purple.
I mean, that's literally how foolish some of these arguments are.
And if you want to talk about some ridiculous stuff, we actually broke down some of the things that are ridiculous in fantasy games into 3 things: world building, creatures, and what?
And social structures.
So let's go ahead and jump in and talk a little bit about some ridiculous world building because magic.
All right.
You listed a lot of these. Give me this first example. This is hilarious.
Okay. In Kryn, you've got 3 moons.
Mm-hmm.
In a real world with real physics, the tides would be absolutely suicidal. In Kryn, There are just sailors at every port.
Just
and
chilling.
Everything's fine.
Just
And
sailing
nobody
away.
mentions the fact that, oh, those 3 full moons that they had during the eclipse caused frickin' tidal waves all over the world. Nope, wasn't mentioned.
Come sail away. Just
Right.
off into the distance, right?
Sail!
Here's a good example. The Underdark in many game worlds.
Yeah.
You know?
Just straight up hollow world theory.
Yeah. Don't worry about the fact that, if it was actually that hollow with that many caverns, miles and miles, keep in mind, one of them's a subterranean sea.
Yeah.
You're going to have some pressure down there. Like something has to support the mountain directly above it.
Yeah, because magic.
Because magic is a perfect example. What are some other fun examples of world building, Matt?
Sharn and planner zones in Eberron.
Oh, yeah.
The crazy architecture that just rises into the sky.
From the Manifest Zone.
Yep.
Another example of that, Netheril. So any of the floating cities or Earthbergs in the Forgotten Realms.
Sure.
I mean,
The plane of air.
the planet, any of the dimensions, sure. Ridiculous timelines for that matter. Time travel for that matter.
Yes.
All of this because magic.
Giant anything, but in particular,
Giant people.
sure, just like regular giants.
You would talk about physics, like, there you go. There's the first problem, right? Giant ants.
There's a reason insects have a maximum size
And
in
it's
the
a
world.
good thing. That's a very, very good thing.
Sure.
Do you really want that cockroach to be the size of you? You guys ever see the movie Mimic? Starts wearing a trench coat. Man, it's all over then.
But I mean, you also have things like dragons, right?
Yeah,
Giant anything is wholly unrealistic.
absolutely. And for that matter, chimeras, which, by the way, we did
We
an
love.
entire... We love chimeras. We
Yeah.
did an entire episode on chimeras. If you haven't seen it, go check it out.
We've done a couple actually at this point.
Yes, I've lost count how many we've done. There are social structures because of magic that don't exist in real life,
Sure.
like dungeons. Like, how many dungeons actually exist in the real world? Think about this.
In the neoclassical sense, there's plenty. In the fantastical sense,
Not that many.
is there one?
There's
Like,
a couple.
is there one?
There's a couple.
Really?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Okay.
Same thing with sewer systems, right? There's some big sewer systems. Paris got a
Sure.
sewer system. New York, where the alligators lurk.
Yeah.
Alligator people lurk. And other things that are alligator related lurk. But fantasy sewer systems, maybe not so much, right?
Things like farmers, they wouldn't really exist. If you've got druids and wizards, you've got druids that'll grow the food, wizards that'll unseen servant and have them pick all the food.
And move earth to plow the fields.
Yeah.
I mean, you can also think about construction. They can summon a wall of stone to make a house.
Yep.
Now, they may not be architects, but that's
But
what
if you're keeping it simple,
yeah, make it a square box or something like that. Should theoretically be okay. And walls of force, hold up a lot
we'll
of
make
stuff.
sure it's okay.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's okay, right? Shape stone, all that good stuff. People don't die. There's another example,
Yeah.
right? You can resurrect people. Again, when you can raise the dead, stop messing about the damn cat.
Every day you have a wizard that just sits there, wakes up, wishes for more diamonds, and then just calls it a day.
I want to be a paladin riding a flumph. Think of it. The mighty flumph rider.
Sure.
Majestic flumph as he farts gently on the breeze. I've got my lance. How delightful that would be, right?
Absolutely.
And you telling me I can't do that? How dare you?
Basically everything in Eberron.
Yes, from a society perspective,
Yeah.
because magic is technology, right?
Right.
So they've got sendings and replacing the telegraph.
Yeah.
Teleportation.
Flying,
Tensors floating disk for travel and cargo. Levitation.
the ability to breathe water. That's a tourist industry.
And then, of course, the big one,
Yep. Lightning bolt for power or fire elementals for
Power
unlimited. Yeah.
power generation, right? So I think we've beat this into the ground enough to say, now you understand how ridiculous this argument is, right? Because magic exists, because it is a good narrative development to use, stop worrying about whether this spell is overpowered. It might be a little overpowered. It's fine. You can work around it, right? And if your character wants to play something that is slightly outside the rules or even completely outside the rules, find a way to justify it. It's
Yes.
okay. It's not going to break your game. I promise you.
Magic is the justification for narrative development.
Yes. So what's a better way to go about justifying magic, which is the second part of this? Let's use magic as a justification tool, Matt.
Okay.
How do we start this?
It comes down to 2 rules. The first is determine your truth.
Okay.
How close to reality are you actually playing? And the second is ask yourself why.
Why this reality exists.
Right.
Okay. Let's explore that slightly further. Let's talk about determining your truth, how close to reality we're playing. DMs, your lore should be somewhat consistent to whatever skewed version of reality you happen to be playing with.
Sure.
Now, this doesn't mean that it has to be written down or set in stone, but you should have a basic idea of how crazy you want things to get, right? A lot of times this may be determined by the game you're playing.
Sure.
Right? Playing a high fantasy game, you could have some crazy high fantasy, right? But you may be building your own world. And for those of you who are building your own world, we want to make sure that you have the rules that you can use to build that world properly so that your players don't get lost or weirded out by all of these inconsistencies.
It sounds counterproductive, but what we're saying is give your players some semblance of what is normal, even if normal, in quotation marks, is the ability to ride a griffin to work.
Which would be awesome.
Right. If that's your taxi, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that's your car, think Flintstones. There's an animal for everything. That is the norm for the Flintstones.
And you would assume because of that all of the modern conveniences would be animal powered.
Based. Yeah.
And that's a great example using like the Flintstones as that, right? Using animals and stuff like that. When we're talking about like power levels and stuff, we've mentioned this before in many other episodes. They usually tends to be none, low, medium, and high, right? What are we talking about here?
Okay, so no magic is basically going to be a tech-based game.
Yeah, so it's mostly Conan.
Sure.
The first movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, mostly. Or even something like Cyberpunk.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good example of that. Low magic could replicate simple tech, so maybe produce fire.
Yeah.
Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer.
Then you've got medium magic.
Magic can replace complex tech, so it might be able to produce the image of a fire-breathing dragon. That's kind of cool. Illusions.
Sure. Gotta love that. And then you've got high magic.
Can produce advanced, anything goes. It can actually make a fire-breathing dragon.
Sure.
So those are the power levels to play with. So once we've determined what reality happens to be, we ask ourselves why this exists. And it can start with just a simple question. Why do I have a beholder in my game?
Sure.
Because he's a bartender. That's my answer.
Right.
And if that's true, what else is true? Going on the old improv rule, right? So if the bartender is a beholder, who's the bouncer?
I was thinking a spell eater.
A spell eater. Ooh, like what?
Remember the old giant spider-looking things that literally ate magic?
Yes, that's a deep cut there, man. I didn't think about that one. That'd be kind of cool. He's smoking a cigarette while he's got
Sure.
He's got a black shirt that says staff on it,
But
on his abdomen.
It also keeps the beholder from going rogue if he loses his temper.
That's a good point because he eat the spell. Yeah, why not? That'd be fun. Why is there a floating castle? Right?
For reasons.
For reasons, right? Why is it in the desert? Why do you need the glaive to defeat the lord that's in the floating castle that teleports from desert to grasslands?
You just couldn't get past the curl reference.
No, I just had to slog through that. Come up with whatever answer you want with this, right? It doesn't have to be logical. It's magic. Because magic exists, you could literally just say, the beholder exists because magic. That's it. That's all you got to say.
Because they came from the dreams of some elder god on the far realms.
Yeah.
That's literally one
the
of the
only
ways
reason
they
I need.
exist.
Yeah. Think about the ramifications of that. So, if floating icebergs exist, what else could exist, Matt?
Everything.
I'll tell you what's going to exist. Tiny floating rocks exist.
True.
Because if an earthberg exists that can hold up a castle, I can find one that can hold up a car. Or me.
Sure. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Now the wheel isn't invented. Why would I need a wheel? I just go find a piece of floating rock. Tie it to a goat.
Yeah. And
like, seriously, what else do I need? I literally move as fast as that goat or horse or bird that's pulling it along.
Sure. It's a floating chariot.
Yes.
Drawn by whatever power draws it.
Yeah, and people don't think about that, right? So this is a fun mental exercise to consider. Think about other places you can throw this logic in. You can build all kinds of ridiculous stuff.
Here is an example of what would happen if a giant floating castle on an Earthberg existed, there would 100% be thieves that stole chunks
Of Earthbergs?
off of these Earthbergs.
And they would just have a floating Sargasso of...
Yeah.
Yeah, they would lash it all together with rope.
Yeah.
It would be...
Like a flotilla.
Yes, that would be awesome.
There
would be air pirates.
Yep.
Sailing the skies. That'd be awesome. Riding on their majestic flumps to kill others.
Hopefully we're going to haste the flumps. Flumps don't move at a great speed.
Yeah, that's true. We can have fast flumps. That's fine. I'm good with that. Speaking of other fun things we're good with, we also have what, Matt?
Question of the week.
All right. What's the question of the week for this week?
Since we're talking about magic and justification and whatnot, if you could replace one modern convenience with magic, what would it be and how would it work?
Interesting. I want to hear your answer first.
Okay. So I was thinking through this, and I like the idea of anything disposable being bottled or made in a factory that produces force containers or like
walls of force, but with like bottles of force.
Yeah.
I like that.
Like instead of plastic, you use force for everything.
Okay. What happens when you're done with the bottle?
You throw it into the disintegration bin.
Oh, which instantly erases the force spell.
Effects.
Very nice. That would be pretty cool. Everything would be clear. It'd be delightful.
Mm-hmm. You could see all the way through to see, whether or not those strawberries are actually ripe.
Man, Tupperware parties would have a whole new meaning. Look at all these bottles of force I've made.
Oh my God. You could also make materials any kind of shape, right? Like cake molds that are all of a sudden super, super, super fancy because you don't have to use a mold to make them. You can just magic them into whatever shape you could imagine.
I was thinking sculpture.
Sure.
Pour some hot metal into a figurine. You've got a statue. Bam, done, right?
Yep.
Just pour it in. Just leave a little hole at the top. Sand that bit off. That's a lot of fun. Mine is actually on a similar vein. I was thinking more of from a cleanliness perspective. So we waste a lot of water. We waste a lot of just recycling and stuff like that. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if like all of the toilets or garbage compactors had a bag of devouring on it? Okay. Or maybe even just, just revolutionize the cleaning industry altogether, right? Prestidigitation clean. Bam. I step into a shower. I step out of the shower. I don't even have to remove my clothes. They're already pressed.
Sure.
That saves a lot of time. Now, I like my hot showers. That's how I come up with all my ideas.
Right.
I mean, if you stick me in 130-degree, steaming hot back to tank, I will have written the works of Shakespeare in the course of an hour. My brain just goes at a faster speed for some reason.
If you could give me a stationary bike in a hot shower, my brain would go off the charts.
Wow.
I would make Einstein look like an idiot.
So you need a stationary bike and a hot shower?
Yeah, because, you've met me. I pace like mad when I'm thinking. So if I could do the physical activity and get the hot shower,
and then you just
at
need
the same time,
just need a voice recorder to rattle off your thoughts. We should try this experiment sometime.
Computer, take this down.
Yeah. Well, what we need is we need a waterproof cycler.
Yeah.
And we'll work on that. I'm sure there's someone that can build that for us. So yeah, replace all of the hot showers and stuff with prestidigitation, cantrip clean, right? Come out with pressed clothes. Or as I mentioned, if you got a waste disposal, have a little bag of devouring, go someplace else, right? Where does it go? Feed some kind of eldritch being. We don't worry about that till it destroys the world.
Yeah, it's like the sun eventually expanding, right? It's gonna happen, but that's gonna be some other generation.
Somebody else's problem,
right.
Really.
I also like the idea of like for cleanliness, just a fire elemental heating the water and then a purify food and drink, right, to clean the water. And then you just keep cycling it back through and you have a permanent hot shower.
Oh, a permanent hot shower.
It doesn't waste any fuel.
I really like that. You just have one pissed off fire elemental to deal with.
So you throw them some coal occasionally to keep them happy.
Like Howl's Moving Castle.
I haven't seen it, but I believe you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Of course, we're always interested in your answer to the question of the week. If you like, hit us up at Goblin's Corner on Twitter. And of course, you could find us on all of the other social media channels that Matt posts to mostly.
It's true. You can also just Comment down below if you're watching it on YouTube.
Right there below.
Indeed.
And for those of you listening home, you have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm pointing down.
I bet they could have worked that out through context.
Maybe so.
I trust our audience.
So as we mentioned before, when you're building your world, if you want to justify using magic, it only comes down to 2 rules, right? Determine the truth that you're playing with, whatever that ridiculous reason happens to be, and then ask yourself why. Why does this exist? How does that further the rest of the world? If that was true, what else is true that may coincidentally also be related to what you're coming up with? Now, that's all you need, technically.
Sure.
But we do have a couple extra rules to help you flesh out your game world. So let's go ahead and jump into some of those.
What is your world like? That's a good place to start.
Sure. And, that depends on what kind of magic that you're going to have, how it's used. And we mentioned the high, low, medium magic and so forth. But you kind of want to know, how is the world created? Maybe what powers are at play, right? So gods, powerful beings, eldritch horrors from beyond reality.
Just mages?
Yeah, some guy in a cloak, with the Eye of Agamotto, whatever it happens to be, right? It's just that one. It's just him with the T.
Just him.
Just him. It's just Doctor Strange. Could be rifts in space, magic artifacts. It could be a combination of all of that, but all of that plays into the world you're trying to build or play, and so all of those have ramifications, potentially.
I like the idea that magic comes from a bunch of drunk fairies.
I like that idea as well. We should play that game. Very whimsical.
I'm going to give that guy magic. Congratulations, you've got magic.
This rando just starts sprouting wings and flying off into the distance.
Yep.
Sure, why not? Meanwhile, the guy working, studying, trying to be the wizard is like, I'm never gonna be able to cast this spell.
Yeah.
He dies a bitter man. That'd probably be me.
It probably would be.
What is speaking of magic in general, what is magic supplanting for people?
Now, usually it's going to be technology.
Yeah, and that's just because authors write in magic instead of something that was invented, right? We have to come up and use our brains when we don't have magic.
Right. And science fiction, they use technology to explain the magic of the world.
Yes. I like what you did there. DMs, ask yourself this. What does magic do well and what does tech do well? Because that's going to play a big part into how you play your game world a lot. If they're both equal, how does someone choose one or the other?
Could just be personality and style. Could be stats or necessities.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a great question.
Do they complement each other as well? Maybe they work together. Like Eberron has kind of like Magitech almost, right? So does Final Fantasy for that matter.
Sure.
But for example, let's use this thing. So, all right, everybody could fly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no one invented the wheel. What does that mean? Well, that means there's no motors either.
Sure.
Potentially. Or you might have a different type of motor.
I can see that because if the purpose of the motor is not motive force, is it even going to be called a motor anymore?
That's a good point.
But then what is its purpose? What was it designed to accomplish? Probably heavy work, right? Like digging wells and stuff just because you can fly does not mean that you don't need water.
That's a good point. I mean, I can always disintegrate till I find water.
True.
Again, maybe that doesn't exist in your game, or maybe it's tougher to cast. So think about how technology and magic interact.
A good mental exercise is, if magic exists, how does it influence blank?
And blank could be anything, right?
Right.
How does it influence culture, architecture, history?
Wars, agriculture, entertainment.
Porn.
Realistically, modern entertainment has been influenced more by the adult industry than most people know. Read Freakonomics and just look up the history of it. It's super interesting. It's wild.
Are there any restrictions to magic in your world? And DMs, what we're saying here is, do you have any guardrails in place for your game? Now, what we mean by that is not necessarily rules-based, but more narratively or thematically. Do you have any thematic rules? So there's lots of different restrictions you can have, right? Physical restrictions or power restrictions. Let's give some examples of those.
Okay. Maybe in your world, there's no raising the dead.
Okay, just doesn't happen, right?
Nope.
It may not, maybe because the game you're playing doesn't have the raising the dead. Maybe because it's really difficult in your game.
Could be culturally passé. Maybe you're physically or magically capable of raising the dead, but it makes you a pariah instantly.
Yeah. Could be no infernal contracts. Maybe you can't affect the color yellow, Green Lantern.
Maybe, though, and as opposed to like power restrictions, maybe there are physical restrictions. The Dungeons & Dragons magic system, you get X number of spells per day.
In Shadowrun, you suffer from drain.
You might get bleed damage.
Oh, yeah. Maybe you have to sell your soul in some games, right? Those are fun physical restrictions. This is generally game mechanics is what we're talking about with this.
Right.
Can also have time, location, or item restrictions. This is a real fun one. This is what I like to call the narrative loophole because magic.
Right.
So what I mean by that is there's lots of fun things that players want to do that's not in the rules.
Sure.
I want that floating Earthberg.
Yes.
Well, you can't cast that anymore. That type of magic is forbidden. 10th level spells don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Heard a lot of that in 3rd edition.
Yeah, they were written out of reality.
Yeah.
Because of Karsus.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, maybe I have to kill a greater earth elemental at a time of a double equinox for the moons, and I have to do it in a specific location on top of a mountain that was previously cut from, you know what I mean?
Sure.
To make an Earthberg.
Yeah.
So I'm on the top of the flat part of
Place
that
where
mountain.
the ritual has already occurred.
Yeah. Now I can make an Earthberg, right? And I cut another piece of the mountain off. And
Now it's a frisbee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now I have a floating frisbee, right? That is a nice narrative way around that restriction.
You have to do the research to find out what you have to do. You have to get all of the things necessary to do it, and you still have to wait for the timing. And timing for things like this happen at the speed of plot.
Yes. This is something that I do a lot with magic items, particularly in D&D. Why? Because I think magic items in D&D are kind of silly, the way that they have them. It's going to take me how many years to make this magic item?
73.
Yeah, no, we're not doing that. You know, I generally like to say if you're going to play narratively with your magic item, right? I've got this really cool sword. I'm going to talk to my sword and slay things with my sword and,
It's going to be my bestest friend.
It's going to be my bestest friend. I talk to my sword every day. It's my best friend. Pretty soon it's going to start talking back to you, right?
Sure.
It should, at least. I mean, you're spending all this emotional investment into this item. You're basically attuning it. And it becomes a magical item. Very, very much like Weapons of Legacy used to do.
Yeah.
So that is a narrative plot device to give my characters really cool stuff.
Via magic. One of your restrictions could be social restrictions.
Okay, what do we mean by that?
Could be gender split, like Robert Jordan's...
The Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
So the Aes Sedai in the Wheel of Time were female,
Right.
and only females could cast magic because the males would be driven mad.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Could be done by species. You've got lizard folk doing like swamp magic.
Yeah, I got that swamp magic.
Or dwarven people doing rune magic.
Mm-hmm, like the rune carving and stuff like that.
Sure.
That'd be kind of fun. Or geomancy.
That'd be good for Earth Genasi.
Absolutely. Very thematic, right?
Yeah.
You could have certain types of people cast magic, and that could be based off the social strata, right? Maybe only the rich people can do it because it's expensive. Got to have all those reagents and stuff. How does that affect your game world?
I think the way that affects the game world is you find lower strata people making deals with outside entities. So you're going to have more lower strata warlocks, and also more warlocks always leads to more sorcerers.
Yes. And also leads to more demons and demonic incursions and possessions and stuff. A lot of fun stuff there.
You can make deals with things other than demons. There are other options.
That's a good point. Going on magic, how is magic viewed in your world? This can be separated, as we mentioned, by class, right? Maybe people like diviners versus, say, I don't know, necromancers.
Sure.
Or it could even be broken down specifically as to types of magic, right? So maybe clerical magic versus arcane magic.
Yeah. Your average archer is going to hate anybody that knows abjuration.
Yeah. Protection from arrows. Your average thief is going to hate detection spells, right? Because he's
Sure.
trying to hide and steal your stuff. Maybe he's going to love illusion spells because he's trying to hide to steal your stuff.
Sure. It only makes sense.
Yeah. So DMs, what does that say about a particular branch of magic or even particular spells? What do people like? What do people hate, right? We talked about this in previous episodes. Maybe an entire society is totally for necromancy, right? When people die, their bodies are raised. They turn a bunch of wheels to generate power.
Yeah.
To lift heavy things, toil forever, right? Your body is owned by the state when you die.
Sure. You're not using it anymore, and you could be helping the future generations.
Or it could be viewed as a horrible thing, right? Desecration of the corpse and stuff like that. It's not for us to decide. It's your game.
And for me to decide.
Yeah.
You're not using it anymore.
Yeah. It's to those in power determine how they use it. Speaking of those in power.
Who is in power?
Mm-hmm.
And do they use magic?
They should.
If you've got a kingdom with a king, there are either going to have to use magic or they're going to have to employ people that use magic.
Either the king's a wizard or something is keeping wizards from just taking over the king.
Sure.
Because otherwise, if I was a wizard and there was a king, I would be like, mind control the king. I now own the kingdom.
Disintegrate, disguise self.
There you go. Yeah. I'm now impersonating the king. Congratulations. It's good to be the king.
It is good to be the king.
What is that justification against that? And it could be anything in your game world that you want it to be. It could literally just be kings cannot be mind controlled or disintegrated. Okay, maybe they could be killed normally.
It's part of the royal regalia. Maybe they have specific vestments that protect them from wizardly magic or magic in general.
Oh, that would be pretty cool. So maybe like the color purple robes that you have or the foppish kingly hat. I guess a kingly crown. You know what? I'm going with the foppish hat. I want a king with the foppish
hat?
Yeah, you know what? Because you know that king parties, right?
Sure.
The king with the crown, he's all business, but that king with the hat, it's got a feather in it. Yeah, he parties, right? Maybe it resists mind control or disintegration rays. That'd be very useful for a king to resist disintegration.
The royal vestments are designed specifically to prevent being taken over or assassinated by wizards.
Could also be something that the gods themselves, when you kill the king, they look very poorly upon that.
Like run the whole divine right action?
Sure. It could happen in your game. Come up with that power dynamic.
Another thing you have to ask yourself is, how does whatever brand of magic shake up the power structures of a society?
Absolutely. And this is a very important point in the because magic argument. Again, we've beat this into the ground slightly. We're talking about raised dead again. In a kingdom where being raised from the dead is commonplace, people are going to have a much more frivolous concern with safety. I'm not going to have guardrails when I know that if I fall to my death...
Oh, well.
Yeah, why do I need to build guardrails? If I die, they're just going to raise me tomorrow.
The capital city is built on a diamond mine.
Sure. Who cares?
Right, like 500 gold diamonds are literally just laying around.
Yeah. How does this affect the way that society views death? What happens when they get into a war? Like, think about that. They have no concern for loss of life as long as you find the body.
Everybody's just a straight berserker. They just charge. Rawr!
Yeah, they get dropped, and there's just a bunch of clerics with diamonds just going across the field, raising everybody.
Yep, just big, like, chains of diamond, prayer beads of diamonds. They're just, oh no, poof.
One just burns out, turns to dust, and they just keep going until the whole chain is done.
Yep.
Yeah. You brought up a great point earlier. How does this affect a line of succession?
Yeah, that's something I've always thought about in fantasy games that have raised dead or reincarnation or things like that. Now, royal families can clearly afford raised dead.
Yes.
How? Just how? Just
how are they not
what
still
are the
around?
Rules, right. What are the rules behind this? What are the laws? I need to know.
Well, I love what you put earlier before we started recording. You've got this guy. He's 1,000 years old. He's been reincarnated a couple of times.
Right.
And resurrected for the times he got killed.
Because reincarnation provides you with a brand new young adult body.
Yep.
So if you were 90, got murdered, got reincarnated, now you're 22 again.
There you go. Something to think about, right? You got to come up with that. Could be anything. Maybe they can only be rezzed a certain amount of time, or maybe after a while their spirit just frays and goes to the afterlife.
I do like that answer. I like the it gets harder every time.
What about non-casters? Here's another important point. How are they viewed in society?
I think it depends largely on like the prevalence of magic, how magic is looked at. There's a lot of things you have to make decisions about.
Mm-hmm.
And those things are going to trickle down to how it affects the average guy.
And finally, is there a type of magic that your world is flavored by? You should flavor it accordingly. And what do we mean by that, Matt?
The difference between a planet that is influenced by druid magic versus clerical magic is going to look
vastly
different.
It's going to be trees everywhere, beautiful structures that are just, carved out of maybe, I don't know, grown together vines or something like that.
The difference between Shadow of the Demon Lord and like Werewolf the Apocalypse are extremely different because of the sources of the problems.
Yeah.
But also the sources of the solutions are going to shape the different look as well.
Absolutely. So as in terms of storytelling and stuff like that, this should be a part of your general descriptions when you're talking about a city, a country, or even the entire world.
Sure. And I like the idea of maybe your countries are drawn politically by sources of magic, right? Like maybe years ago, there was a country that bound itself to a pact to a demon, whereas a small island across the way is strictly fae magic. Even the places are going to look completely different. You could have visual differences literally at the borders. The borders are not imaginary lines anymore.
You walk across the border.
They're straight up.
There's like mushrooms and like happy-go-lucky people dancing. As soon as I step across the border, it's like blackened terrain. It's a blasted wasteland.
Yeah, you can just...
We've entered the border zone.
These are the Badlands.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there you have it. A couple of methods that you can use to interject magic into your game world without all this needless arguing and searching for a particular reason. Just say because magic, justify it. If that was true, what else is true? And you got it.
Yep.
Any questions or comments? Hit us up at Gobbler's Corner on Twitter. Did you enjoy our program? We're going to magic up a couple more. Subscribe to your show on your favorite player, YouTube, and Twitch.
Click the 5 stars, give us a review on iTunes and Podchaser. On YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell so that you get notifications. It helps get our show in front of more people, and it feeds the hungry algorithm.
Which is currently coming up with other arguments to distract you with because...
No, Fly is overpowered.
Reasons. That's all the time we have for tonight. Once again, my name is Eric.
And I'm Matt.
We'll see you next time.
Good night, folks.
The Goblin's Corner is written and produced by Eric Holden and Matt Staples.
The music is by the Mighty D20.
This has been a Subterranean production.